adding and subtracting rational expressions. So we're going to start by simplifying and just assuming that no denominator is equal to 0. So think back to when we added fractions back in chapter 1. If they already have a common denominator, we can just focus on adding or subtracting our numerator. And so these two fractions already have a common denominator of 3a. So we can just do our subtraction of 5 minus 2, which is 3, over our 3a. But now notice we can simplify. These 3's will divide out, and we're left with 1 over a. Same idea here. Notice they already have a common denominator of a minus 2. So 3a plus 2a is 5a over a minus 2. Notice we cannot simplify that anymore. So that is our answer. Alright, now notice these don't have the exact same denominator, but notice they're only different by a negative. So let's go ahead and factor out a negative 1 from the denominator here. So we're left with negative b plus a. So we can actually rewrite this as 2a over a minus b. And then we can actually move this negative 1 up to our numerator, because negative 1 over 1 is the same thing as 1 over negative 1, which is the same thing as negative 1. Those are all the same. So we can actually change this to plus a negative b over a minus b, which then simplifies to a minus b over, 2a minus b over a minus b. Notice those are not the same because the numerator has a 2. Therefore, we cannot simplify it anymore. On this one, we have to get a common denominator. And notice our common denominator has to include both the a and a b. It's got to have both factors in it. So our least common denominator is actually going to be the product, or a times b. So we know that's our denominator. So this first fraction, we had to multiply by b over b, so that we can get a times b for the a times b. So our numerator is going to become 5b. Now on this right side, we need to multiply by a over a, so that our denominator becomes ab. So we'll have a 7a in our numerator. And now that we have a common denominator, we can combine our like terms. Now notice 5b and 7a are not like terms, so we just have to leave it as 5b minus 7a all over ab. And you do want to double check to see if you can factor anything, and we can't in this case, so we are good. Now for this one, we can get a common denominator. We're going to need both an a plus 3 factor and an a minus 3 factor. And so our common denominator is going to be a plus 3 times a minus 3. So notice this first fraction, we had to multiply by a minus 3 over a minus 3. So we'll have 3a times a minus 3. And on this left side, we had to multiply by a plus 3 over a plus 3. So we'll have 5a times a plus 3. And so let's start by distributing. So we get 3a squared minus 9a over a plus 3 times a minus 3. And then in our numerator here, we'll have 5a squared plus 15a. And once again, over a plus 3, a minus 3. Now let's combine our like terms. So we know our denominator is going to be a plus 3 times a minus 3. Our squared terms, we have 3a squared minus 5a squared. So we're left with negative 2. a squared. And then we have negative 9a minus 15. So we have negative 9 minus 15, or negative 24a. And now you always want to factor to see if you can simplify. So we can take out a negative 2a from our numerator. We're left with a plus 12 over a plus 3 times a minus 3. And nothing factors, so we are good. That is our answer. Alright, this one, let's start by figuring out our common denominator. So this first one will factor into a minus 2 times a minus 2. The second one is a minus 2 times a plus 2. And now, when we get our common denominator, we need all of the factors that are in the first fraction. So we know we're going to have an a minus 2 times an a minus 2. But we also need any additional factors that appear in the other fraction. And this one, this a minus 2 is already accounted for, but we haven't yet got an a plus 2, so that's also going to be in our denominator. So this first fraction, in order to get from here to here, we need to multiply by an a plus 2 over a plus 2. So I'll have an a times a plus 2. And on the right side, we need to multiply by a minus 2 over a minus 2, so that we get the denominator we need. So now let's go ahead and distribute. So I'll have a squared plus 2a over a minus 2 times a minus 2 times a plus 2 minus, and our numerator over here is going to be 2a minus 4, denominator the same. So now combining our like terms, so our denominator will stay, and now our numerator will become a squared. Then we have a 2a minus a 2a, so those will cancel. And then we have a minus a negative, so it'll be plus 4. And now notice our numerator is two squares being added together, not subtracted, so we can't factor. So we are left with this. Alright, so this one, let's go ahead and start by factoring our denominators. And this one just has a y. So our common denominator, we need everything from this fraction, so we'll have a y and a y plus 1. But then we also need, from this middle fraction, we already have a y plus 1, but we need a y minus 1. And then looking at this last fraction, we already have our y accounted for, so that we are good. I'm going to go ahead and erase these little marks that I wrote. Alright, now this first fraction, we need to multiply by y minus 1 over y minus 1 to get our denominator. And if you wanted to go ahead and distribute now, you could, to save yourself a step later on. This middle one, notice we're just missing a y from our denominator, so we're going to multiply by y over y. So we'll have 1 times y is y. This last one, we actually need a y plus 1 times a y minus 1. And when we distribute this 2, we'll get 2y plus 2 times y minus 1. And when we distribute those two together, we'll end up with 2y squared minus 2. And so now let's combine everything we can. So we know our common denominator is y times y plus 1 times y minus 1. Y squareds, we have a y squared plus a 2y squared, so we'll have 3y squared. As far as the y's, we'll have a negative y minus y. So we'll have a negative y minus y, so we'll have a negative 2y. And then we are left with this negative 2, so we'll have a minus 2. And that does not factor. So this is our answer. Now this one, it is going to be this whole quantity times itself, but let's see what we can do about simplifying that inside the parentheses first and make our lives a little bit easier. So first thing to notice, these denominators aren't the same, but if we factor out that negative 1, they will be the same. So we can actually begin, we'll have a squared over a minus 3, minus, and then we'll have this negative 1 times 9 minus 6a all over a minus 3, and then all of this squared. So we'll have a squared over a minus 3 minus, we'll have a negative 9 plus 6a, all of this squared. Our common denominator is a minus 3. Our numerator will have a squared minus 6a plus 9, because we have a minus, a negative. All of this is still squared. And now our numerator here can actually factor into a minus 3 times a minus 3, all this over a minus 3 squared. So one factor of these will cancel out, so we're left with a minus 3 squared, or if you wanted to write it, you could just put a minus 3 times a minus 3.